Hello and welcome to another Beer Clipper video. If you enjoy my videos and are not yet a subscriber, then please do consider subscribing, and also don't forget to ding that bell and select all so that whenever one of my videos goes live, YouTube does tell you about it. This video is the third and final instalment of my epic build to make the Hobbit Hole for Rosie, my daughter, and her first birthday. I've really enjoyed going through these. Looking back, it was a big build, it took a while, and it's now been quite a long time actually since I finished the build. However, that's just how things go, and it's nice in a sense also to have drip fed this onto the channel and not overwhelmed you with loads and loads of Rosie's Hobbit Hole week in, week out. However, this will be the last video of it, so if you are enjoying it, then I'm sorry, and if you haven't been enjoying it, then you're probably relieved. So let's jump back to quite a long time ago. I'm not entirely sure how long now, and then I will see you again to wrap up at the end of this video. Now is one of those nice serendipitous moments, which is good in this build because currently I'm delayed by things not arriving, when I actually have some things that I'd ordered before which is going to work really, really well for the Hobbit Hole. So let me show you what I've got. First of all, and this is really cool, I have some 28mm rabbits. I don't know if that's going to focus. I've got my focus point a bit odd on this side where my face is. Some 28mm rabbits, and I am going to use those as a little Easter egg. So I'm going to put a couple along the front where you better see them quite easily, but I'm also going to hide a few so that Rosie can go looking for them. And the other two things that I'm going to do, I have some 28mm sheep and some 28mm goats. So this corner over here is going to be a sheep field, and I'm going to put a couple of these sheep in. Unfortunately, none of them appear to have their heads down cropping, which is a shame. And then out of shot over here, I'm going to put a goat or two. So that's going to really bring the whole thing to life and give me something to work on while I'm waiting for the rest of the stuff to dress the gardens and what have you to arrive, which is now probably not going to happen until after her birthday, which is just one of those things, but at least I have something to work on and it's going to look wicked. I will also be able to put the miniatures on in the very, very short term, in the very near future, because yeah, pretty much everything will be done around where they're going to go. So this is what I'm going to work on now. So I'll point the camera down and I will start clipping these off their sprues, off their bases, and sticking them onto some tongue depressors, and then get to painting. Right, let's get started on these. So I'll do the simple ones first. I'm going to have one sheep and two goats, I think. So let's get these sheep out of their little packs. Grab one of these. And I'm going to leave it on the base. However, to glue it securely to a tongue depressor, I'm just going to need to clean up the bottom of it, as it has some little sprue joins still on from where it's been clipped off. And when I'm done painting it, I will cut it off of this little pudding base and stick it on without a base. So that can go on to a tongue depressor like that, and that will be nice and easy for me to paint. So what we do for this is we get PVA and we drop the model on. And that's that. When that's dried, that'll be nice and secure, definitely secure enough to paint. So we'll put that over there. Next, we'll get a couple of the goat models out. So let's see, do we have any? They're all the same pose. Now I'm starting to think about conversions. I think probably what that means is I'll just do one goat, because I don't have the time or the inclination really to do masses of conversions at this stage, and I can always do a conversion and drop it in, because this is going onto grass and that's it. It's not going into a, sorry, I was trying to get them back into the bag. It's not going into a complicated area. So if I wish to do a conversion in the future and stick it on, I certainly can. So we will do a dollop of PVA on this as well, and stick that goat on. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's those two. Now we have the fun times, which is these teeny tiny rabbits. good. I thought that the bag was going to break them. So these really are little, and I think that I'm going to struggle to get them off their base, even when I do, when I've painted them. So I'm going to paint them on the base, including painting the base, and I'm going to do a couple per section of. So I'm going to do 4, I think, at this stage. I may do more, but for now, that'll be fine. So we'll quickly just make sure. You can probably see on the bottom of that, I don't know if that's going to focus, there's a little bit of metal sticking out, which is what I need to take off. So simply done with a file. Oh yeah. So slightly smaller amounts of PVA for this because they're such tiny models and I don't want to overwhelm them. So a little bit of PVA there, and a little bit of PVA there, and there, and there. Oh, and a big dollop that fell out, but never mind, that can just be taken off with my finger. And we'll drop each of these little rabbits onto the tongue depressor, and we're golden. So they will be paintable as soon as they've dried. You can't really, you've got to be really careful to leave these for a good long time. It's not good enough to do the usual rushy when you're doing this technique, because if the PVA is not dry, then they'll fall off and you have to start all over again. And that is where haste is the enemy of speed. So there we are. So we've picked out the little animals that we're going to put on the diorama. So I will let that to dry, as I've just said, and I'll be back with this stage when they're dry. Probably now, won't be until Tuesday because I'm not around for hobbying tomorrow, unfortunately. But that's going to be really cool. They're going to look really good on the diorama. I'm very pleased. You are looking at a very happy and very relieved beard. Today I had a large delivery and it contained a load of stuff, which means that I can probably, hopefully, finish the Hobbit Hole in time for Rosie's birthday, which is just the best thing because I really thought that I'd made so many mistakes in ordering things and I wasn't going to be able to do it. So what I've got some tulips here for the garden. I have some lovely plant pots. Look at those from Gauge Master. I will attempt to remember to put links to all these items in the description below. I have some awesome cabbages and lettuces. They're very large, so I'll probably only be able to put a couple of those in. I have 2 flower pot planters, 2 red and 2 yellow, which are still in a little cardboard box. So I'll show them to you when I'm actually adding them to the box, to the item. I have some fantasy mushrooms. If you've watched the films, you'll know that hobbits love eating mushrooms, so I thought I'd get a couple of them. I have some pumpkins for the garden. I have, and this is really cool, I have some chickens, some teeny tiny chickens. So, yep, excited about that. And then those things from Serious Play, the chickens and the pumpkins, and then a bunch more flocky kind of static grass tufts to be put in the garden and etc. And also, last but not least, some stuff to some foliage scatter. Easy for me to say. I'm quite excited. I'm sorry, I'm jumbling my words, but I really thought that I was not going to be able to finish this, and I was going to have to do a give a present to Rosie that wasn't ready, and now it looks like it's going to be ready. So I now have a couple of days of heavy effort. This is Tuesday. Her birthday's on Thursday, so I have a couple of days of heavy effort ahead of me in the evenings to get this all done and dusted. But the first thing that I'm going to need to do is prime and paint up the little animals, which will now also include those chickens. So yeah, I will be inviting you along in this rush, and here's hoping that in 2 days' time I'm able to give this present to Rosie fully completed. I'm taking a couple of minutes away from my workday to get these primed, because if I'm on a big rush now, then if I can prime them now, then I'll be able to paint them earlier, maybe even this evening. So I'm going to go ahead with my surface primer in grey from Vallejo. Just got my plastic. Apologies for the tapping, we have builders in and they're knocking plaster off the wall, if you can hear that. Doing Rosie's bedroom, it's all about Rosie. So we'll put some primer on the palette, and I'm going to use my wide brush, and I'm going to apply that primer over all of these models. So I will turn turn the camera off because you've seen people priming before, and next I'll be back when I'm doing something else. And so the great dressing up begins. I'll take the miniatures off, having mocked up roughly where they're going to stand. And I'm going to start to put on these tufts that I have, and also the vegetables and the plant pots that are actually just out of reach, just over in that direction up the bench. I'm not entirely sure how much of this I'm going to video. I'm going to leave the camera running while I do this now for about 10 minutes before lunch, before dinner. So I've got a few minutes, and I'm going to get as much as I can done this evening because, yeah, the rush is on. So I will pop some music on and we'll interject potentially with voiceover beard if I have anything to say, but for now I'm just going to crack on. Now we have to do something about these windows because they're a little grey and a bit blotchy and they're not very good. However, I have been suggested an idea by Ben Bowles from Table Gaming, which I'm going to give a go on one of these windows, and if it works I'll do it on them all. What I've got here is some fly screen mesh, so mosquito netting basically, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cut that out roughly to the same dimensions of the windows, and I've got the same cardboard tube as I used to make the windows, which is very useful. So I'm going to draw around that with my Sharpie and then try to cut it out with some scissors, as simple as that. So let's see if this works. It might work, it might not. It's worth a try. Obviously I'm doing the outside dimension of the window here, and I want to cut for the inside, so I'll be cutting about a little bit tighter than where the markings go. But there we are. So we've got a drawing around that, a rough idea, as I've said. What I'm going to do is just quickly reach up, get some scissors, so excuse me. And I'm going to use my little scissors, my little nail scissors that work so well for this path. And I'm going to attempt to cut this out. So once more, Beard Clipper tries something that he's never tried before and does it on camera, because Beard Clipper doesn't appear to learn. So we're going to cut around. There we are. So that's cut out. And that will fit in nicely. This might work. BB might have been onto something. Wouldn't that be a shock? Sorry, mate. So let's get a little bit of PVA. And if this works, actually I have something before. If this works, then as I say, I'll do the other ones and then I'll get on with something else. His suggestion after this was that I stick this on, paint it like grey or whatever, and then dry brush the rest of it, so it just has a little bit of a glint. So so this kind of like shape looks like reflections of glass, and it does make a lot of sense. So I hope it works. I wish I'd dealt with this particular problem before and not left it when I'm in a bit of a hurry. And if this works, I might explore this even further in a future video. That has gone on okay, so good. So what I'll do now, I'll turn the camera off because that was probably quite boring. I'm going to cut out two more shapes the same size and stick them in, one here and one round the corner on the window on the end, and I'll be back when I come to the next step. But I do just want to say I am so pleased with that garden. It's looking amazing, and it's gonna blow your mind, the other items I've got to put on. I'm very excited about this evening and tomorrow evening getting this done. Onwards. With those windows done, I'm now turning my attention to dressing the rest of the build. And what I'm going to be doing is making some hedges that are going to go along the edge of this fence on both sides. So what I've done is I've got some rubberized horsehair, which you'll know from one of my Battle Games in Middle-earth videos. And I've cut it down into thin strips, and I'm going to be sticking it along the edge of that hedge. Just like that, or the fence even, just like that. So we've got one bit there, and we've got another bit there. Now, I'm using tacky fast glue, which hopefully is going to stick it, and I've also stuck some more here. This is possibly going to take a couple of applications, because, yeah, it's not that great to adhere, and again, it would be nice if I should have done this when I'm not in such a rush. However, I do have some equipment which is going to come to my aid, certainly on that one, which is, you guessed it, clips. So I'm going to clip it in place, and that will mean that it stays roughly where I want it to be. And that glue dries quite quickly, so within, hopefully this evening, I can come back over to this again, and I can dress it with some more flocks to fill the hedge out slightly. So we'll just put a couple of clamps along this, just to hold it to the fence, like that, and make sure it doesn't blow away when I'm moving it. And on that one, I'll put a little bit of a weight, which I've just got out of reach over here, so we're going to get that. Just weight that down gently, and that there will hold that in place. And that will look quite good when it's done. I will be able to scatter a load of flocks and what have you over that and fill it out to make it look like a proper bush. So that's that section done. Next up is this fence, which I'm going to do in a slightly different technique. So when I was making my scatter stuff with using these scrubbing brushes, I tore the green off. And this one's quite a squatty old one, but that's actually quite perfect for what I want. I'm going to be putting in, again, this is bulky material, but I want it to be much more solid, so I'm going to use this instead. And I'm going to be bulking this up so that it goes, making sure not to show too much of the yellow, so that it goes over the top of this, and so that it has a like a bushy shape, which is going to be all the way along this fence. Now I know this obviously means I'm hiding the fence, but that's what I want. So I'm going to be bulking it up like this, so there, and then I'll be able to, again, in the same way as before, cover that, same way as over here, but to cover that with flocks, and it will look really nice with some good flocks. So I'm going to look to stick that down, something like that, and then I'll get another one, and I'll be putting that a little further up as well, potentially up that fence. So I'm going to have a play around with that, work out how I'm going to stick it down, and I'll bring you back when I've got that nailed. There we are, I got that working eventually. It was a bit fiddly, I'm glad I didn't have the camera going. I used super glue, which I know almost is cheating, but it's worked very well. It's secured it in place enough, and later on I'll be able to put some flock over that and bathe that in a lot of watered down PVA, and it will become quite solid. This is still drying, and now I'm going to start to look at this bit here along the front. Now, if we have a look at the picture, which I'll hold up in front of the camera, but probably won't be able to see it very well, you can see that there are some flowers and plants growing along the front. And so what I'm going to be doing is using some of these from Serious Play as well, some of this flock, some of these, tufts, and I'm going to put them all along the front. But as part of that, I'm also going to mix in some of this stuff here, which is also from Serious Play, which is like foliage and that sort of thing. And finally, if I can get it to stick, I do struggle to get this to stick sometimes, I'm going to make use of my own tufts that I've made as well, that are here. So using PVA glue as per usual, and all other manner of sticky stuff, I'm going to get stuck into that. Woohoo! I did a pun. First of all, however, I'm going to tidy up, because if you keep your workplace tidy, you know where everything is all the time, and also stuff doesn't get broken or lost. So I will turn some music on, and I will get to doing along the front of the two gardens, which is the next thing to do. Cracked on a little bit without the camera going, which is a bit naughty, I know, but I'm pleased with what I'm doing, so I'll invite you to see it. I was just a bit of an experiment, and I really shouldn't be doing so much stupid on camera. It doesn't make me look very clever, but I'm sure you learn just as well as I do. However, this is working, so let's show you what's happening. So what I've done is I've got the scrubbing brush that I put on earlier, the scourer, and bent it over. That dried. I've then used some of the WWS fast tack glue, and I have sprinkled over the kind of foliage type stuff, and then finally I've put some of my own homemade yellow scatter over the top of that, just to look like flowers. And along the front I finished that process off. You will have noticed I did two techniques. This side didn't work as well, this side's worked better. So this side I flooded it too much. I put PVA down, then tried to stick things on, and then flooded it with PVA. That's just too much. And the tufts didn't actually stick all that well onto the PVA. So on this side, what I've done is I put no PVA down first, then added the flowers, and then put in the scatter, and then only added in the PVA where I want, where I've put the additional scatter, and that does seem to be working a lot better. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is go to dressing the rest of the garden and looking at the first of all at these two windows here. So I'm going to get down my grey and I'm going to paint that grey, and then I'm going to, when that dries, which won't take long, I'm going to do a dry brush over it with a silver, and we'll see how that looks. I need that done because I need to start to put the plant pots, and I need to build forwards, otherwise I'll be getting all my hands in the way and stuff. But while that's drying, I'm going to make a little bench to sit here out of wood, so you'll join me for that as well. So I'm going to do that painting, and then I'll be back when I have something else to show you. The little table that I'm looking to make is this one you can see just back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these matchsticks with no matchstick end on, and some coffee stirrers, the traditional methods. And I'm not going to do it too fancy because, well, I'm not that clever, and also I want it to be quite quick to make. So I'm going to roughly work out height, which is going to be about yay. And then I'm going to put my little guide in on my chop it. Taking a risk using this at night with Rosie asleep in the room next door, but I think I only need to do 4 of these, so the noise hopefully won't be too bad cutting these up. 2, 3, 4, that'll be close enough. So that's going to be the legs. And what I'm going to do as well is get another matchstick. And so the idea will be that it'll have the 4 legs, and it'll have a raft which will be this in half roughly. There we are. And what will happen is I'll have those like that. Let's make sure actually they are the same length. That wasn't quite in half, but that is the size I want, so that's fine. This chop it makes things so easy. There we are, so that's fine. So we've got a rough width. They're going to go like that. Some lengths of coffee stirrer are going to be glued over the top, and then the legs will come in just nice, so attached both to this, to the inside though, both to this cross piece and also to the top. So what I'll do here is I will take the ends off. Actually, you know what? Let's waste not, want not. Let's make use of these that I've got very handily pre-cut in here. So these already have the ends off, and indeed I already have some that have been split down a bit to make them look a bit more rustic. So what I'll do is I'm going to quickly grab the glue, and I'm going to work out a dimension on this, and then I will cut the 2 edges and then fill in the middle, and that's how I'm going to do it. So I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I have my pencil as well so I can mark. So the length I want it is going to be roughly that long. So what I'll do is I'll cut that, and then put my guide in at the length I want. There we are. So now I can cut them all the same length really easily. And I'm being lazy, so I'm using super glue. So what I'll do is I'll put a little dot of super glue on one end there, and then in the same way a little dot of super glue here on the other one, and then push that into place. There we are. And what I'll also do is get myself a straight edge. I know, let's use Rosie's Hobbit Hole, and I'll push them up so they're at a straight edge and they're going to look well. There we are. So what we'll keep doing now is cutting more lengths like that and gluing them in. While we wait for the little table to dry, which isn't actually looking all that positive right now, but we'll come back to that later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work forwards. Like I said, I'm happy with how those windows are looking now, so I'm going to work forwards, putting some planters and plant pots on the windowsill, and then coming forwards and dressing the garden on this side. So we're going to use a little bit of super glue, and the first one I'm going to put in, they're going to be these tiny little pots, and they're just going to go on this windowsill here. So we'll get our little tweezers. Actually, I'm going to use PVA because I think that's going to do a better job and be slightly less irritating to work with. So I'm just going to dip this into some PVA, which I have over here. A little bit of PVA on the bottom, and there. Doesn't go our little plant pot. See, I show you all my failures, don't I? You don't have to wonder whether I fail. There we are. Now it's on the windowsill. There we are, we have a little plant on the windowsill, first one. So we have another one in another pot here, which is basically going to go next to it. So I'll pull that one out, dip that one in some glue over here, boop, and put that over here. There we are. Our first two plant pots. Now the table is actually going to go just here in front of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on these tulips that I've got here, and I'm going to put them down at Angela's suggestion, which I think is a cracking idea, and it's just going to go all along the edge of the path. So we'll open this packet, and I'll do them the same way as I did with the cabbages. And I'll get my bradawl out, which is getting a lot of use, dig a hole and plant it using PVA. These are beautiful as well, they're really lovely. So let's get on with this. I'll pop some music on while I'm doing these. My bradawl is actually a little too large for these, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pin vise and I'm going to make use of that, which has a smaller bit in it, as you can see, and that will be absolutely perfect I think for these. So that's a pink one. Let's do a yellow one next. Yeah, that hole will be perfect. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is put some of these other things in. So I have these absolutely beautiful brick planters that I got off eBay. They're absolutely stunning. I'm blown away by them. Actually made out of air dry clay from the fields of it. So we're going to try to stick those down, and these are going to go by the front door because they deserve to go by the front door. So we're going to put one on this side, like so. And I've got another one. I'm going to use my brush to put the PVA on it a bit easier. Put the other one down here. There we are. So that really dresses up that front door very nicely. Let me see if I can zoom that in properly for you. It's not that greatly lit at this stage because I've got my light in general not pointing in, but I think that you'll be able to see that that entrance is really starting to take shape. Very, very nice indeed. So the next thing that I've got, zoom back out again for a little bit, are some more flowering pots. Now some of these are going to go on the table, which by the way has failed completely, which is a shame. But some of them are also going to be scattered around. I also do need to not forget about the neighbours, but I'm not worried about it at the moment. We're going to get Rosie's done first. These are all looking good. That will dry nicely. This is going to be fine. When that finally dries, it will look good. Hopefully it won't be too white. That is done well. Let me zoom in over there. So that hedge, that far hedge, if I don't make you too seasick doing this, that far hedge is done. Just take the clips off there. So yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a think now about the next things to do for both of these gardens, and then I'll be back in a minute. I think the next thing to do is to dress up the bank a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these blue flowers. I'm just going to mix it up a bit and put blue flowers on the top, and there will also be some longer weeds. So these are also from Serious Play. I'm not going to bother with PVA, as we saw before. It does seem to maybe affect the glue these guys use. These will be secured in place by the final spray that I'll have to do, which will probably now be after Rosie's birthday as it happens, because I just won't get time. But I'm just going to scatter these in here to add a little bit of colour to the top and differentiate this wild area from the kempt garden below. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. It's a bit of a random scatter, but as I build other things up, it will start to really come together, I'm sure. I'm back after a little more dressing, and what I've done is I've gone and taken some of these pre-made trees, which I bought off a guy. When I remember his name, I'll pop it in the description below, and I'm going to put a fruit tree back here. There we are. Again, scoop up some PVA. Drop it in. There we are, nice orange tree. Not sure if that's typical for the Shire, but still. And I've got this lovely flowering tree here, which I'm also going to put in place. And I think I'm going to put this down in here, which is going to be next to where the next to the entrance. Now you can see that these actually come on a base, and I'm able to twist and remove it from the base relatively easily. I could do the other one, I can't do this one. Having said that, I might leave that on the base and then blend it in. I think that might actually look even nicer because it looks like it's got a little bit more of a kind of like scenic or prepared area around it. So we're going to just glue that in. Get a PVA on the bottom and glue it in. And when that's dry, try and get that in a flat spot. There we are. When that's dry, I'll come in and blend that tree in. Now those two just add some lovely height and they really do set the whole thing off. Now I know that they're not prototypical, but frankly I'm happy with how they look. I really want it to be striking, and I think that Sam being Sam would make that kind of a decision to have a tree there growing with nice flowers on it. And I've just crouched down, which you can't see because I'm off camera, and I'm looking at it from eye height, and it really is starting to come on well. I'm very, very, very pleased. Pretty soon I'm going to have to start painting those animals up and get them in place as well, the rabbits and the sheep and the goat. So yeah, this is coming on. I'm going to stop now and have another think, and I'll be back shortly. I think I've just reached the end of what I can usefully do with the energy that I have right now this evening, and it is looking a lot better than it was. I'm very pleased. However, what's happened is I've just started to try to look at these beautiful Edward photo etch sunflowers, and it is so daunting that I think I just got to stop, because I will make a mistake. I don't want to. I'll do this when I'm feeling more awake and less tired than I am now. I'll do that tomorrow. The instructions seem quite clear, but I'm just looking at them going, oh, that is just so out of my league, and it's very, very daunting, and sometimes you just got to take a break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to settle down with a paintbrush, and I'm going to put some paint on the sheep and on the goat and on the rabbits, and I'm going to leave that now all to dry, and then before the end of the night, so I've got a bit of a interview, can you believe it, with the podcast out of the frying pan, which I'm really looking forward to. Got that in about half an hour. So when that's finished, then I'll come back and I'm going to put some dark brown, the wooden dark brown that I've used to paint all the wood, and I'm going to paint the edge of the diorama before I go to bed tonight. So I'm just going to put paint on that so that I can finish it off and get the plaque on. But I'm going to leave that for now. It's going to be left for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, so that all of that glue can have a good chance to dry, and then I will put that colour around the edge, and that will be me for this evening. I may or may not be back this evening on this footage. I'm quite tired, as you can probably hear in my voice, so I think it's time to call it a night largely. I've just finished a really interesting interview for the Out of the Frying Pan podcast, which was great fun to do. And now, just before I go to bed, I have one last thing that I want to do to this, which is painting the rim, so that I can paint it now and then paint it in the morning and then varnish it, and it'll be done. The rest of this is drying nicely. There's a few issues. This is very, very white here, which is a bit of a shame. I may end up having to re-static grass that, but that's not the end of the world. And then some of the flock has fallen off of this, and I need to seal everything, obviously quite desperately need to seal everything, but that can wait till the morning, I think. What I'm going to do is paint the rim. So I'm going to get myself set up and get that done, and I'll show what it looks like when I have finished. First coat done, and I think that looks really nice, and it's going to look brilliant once it's got the plaque on the front. So I said I was going to leave the ceiling until tomorrow, but I think I'm actually going to do at least a little bit of it, certainly over this bit, which is quite loose, to try and get that dried so I can add another layer where it's not stuck quite well. This is concerning me down the front, like I mentioned. If I zoom in a bit, you can see that that is very white and pale, that the grass here. The glue is not going clear, but I'll leave that overnight and hopefully it will clear by tomorrow. The first thing I'm going to do before I do anything, however, is on this tree here, on the fruit tree, it's a bit stark and it's not all that secure. So I'm going to use the fast tack glue, if I can get that to focus. I'll zoom back out, apologies. The fast tack glue, and I'm going to use the dirt, which is the same dirt as I've got on the track, and I'm just going to put a bit of fast tack glue in there and then sprinkle it around. So I'll get that done now, and then I will do the ceiling, and then I will go to bed. It's the day before and I'm really close to finishing, so what I'm going to be doing is working at my desk. I've finished work for the day. I've got some editing to do, so I'm going to do that again. I've got painting to be done, and the first thing to paint is this little table, which caused some swearing, I can tell you, yesterday. So I'm going to just put the boar, the pine lac, the lighter stain on it, and then leave it to dry, and then turn it over and do the other side. So that's what that's going to be, and then I can later on I can darken it or lighten it or whatever I want to do, but I think the pine is, looking at the pictures, is what it's going to be. So yeah, a little bit of pine lac, and then when that's done, I have my animals, which I never did get to do last night. I was planning on doing these animals last night, but it got to 1 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, I was just way too tired to even think about it, so I went to bed. So yeah, so I'm going to start painting these animals. But yeah, so that's that done. I will do more of that again when it's dried and do the other side. I'm not going to rush it. I have got time. So yeah, now on with the animals. I will invite you along for that as I'm doing it. First up, I'm going to do the sheep, because that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So what I've got is Vallejo Off-White, which is 004 or 70820. Why do they have two colours? If anyone can tell me that, I'll be very grateful. Why do they have two colours? I'm just going to paint that all over for now, because I'll come back and highlight anywhere that I want to highlight. Might give it a little bit of a darker face or something, but for now, in my head at least, and certainly in Rosie's head, sheep are white, aren't they? So why paint them any other colour? Certainly they're sometimes kind of a bit dirty and rubbishy around the back where they're not very clean, but for the large part they're white, and we're not going for brutalist reality, are we? So there we are. So that's that one painted. These don't take very long because they're simple. So yeah, it's going to add a lot of interest to the diorama, and that's what it's all about. There we are. Oh, I dropped it a bit. So there we are. We have a white sheep, pretty much done. So I'll let that dry quickly, and I will come back in a second when I pick up what I'm going to do next. Probably the little bunny rabbits. Next I'm going to do the goat, because it's the other big animal, and I've got the larger brush to hand. And I'm going to do that in beige brown, Vallejo beige brown, which is 70875. And again, while I might do some highlighting or some patching, I'm going to paint the whole thing in one colour just initially, because that will make it a bit easier for me to cope with. Of course, I need to not paint the horns, because the horns will not be beige brown, they will be ivory. So I'll come back and do them another time. But we'll quickly whack that over there. Again, I'm not going to win any prizes for my painting at the best of times, and certainly not when I feel like I'm in a hurry. These are female goats. They're pretty good sculpts, actually. I'll try to remember to put a link up. I put a link on the previous. I think I put a link when I bought them. I'll try and remember to put a link up. There we are. One goat. Might darken that, but I can do that with Nuln Oil and with washes. That's a good undercoat. So now I'm going to work out what colour I want to do the rabbits is. We now have the rabbits. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to paint one of them chocolate, or maybe one or two of them chocolate, which is 70872 from Vallejo. And I'm going to do some of the others, the off-white with the black grey. So there'll be 2 brown and 2 black and white, and that's my plan. So I'm going to get stuck into that. The goat is looking very nice. It probably needs another coat, or maybe some different colours, but it is. I'm very pleased with it. And the sheep just needs a grey wash, and that'll be done. So those are very close to finished. So let's get on with that. While I'm doing that, I'll put some music on, and it won't take me very long, but yeah, I won't talk the hind legs of a donkey. I do have some donkeys actually that I could put into this, but I've decided against it because I want to use them for something else. So let's get the chocolate ones done, and then I'll do little black and white ones. Oh, that didn't work very well, did it? Look, that's obviously been left for too long and wet. I need to start looking after my paints better. I'll let that to dry for a bit, and now I'm going to come back in with the off-white on the tails of the little brown bunnies, because that's one thing that bunnies do have, is white tails. There we are, that's cool, little white tails. And what I'm now going to do is come in with the off black, or with the dark grey, and I'm going to put some patches on each of these little white rabbits. There we are. I think they look like rabbits. I hope they look like rabbits. So that's that done. I'm going to let them dry before I pop them onto the diorama, but they're pretty much ready. I'm now going to look back at these two. So I'll gather together my washes and get started on them. The first thing that I'm going to do is put Agrax Earthshade onto the goat, just to bring out the texture and darken it up a little bit. And also very lightly on the horns, because they're a little bit shiny. There we are. That is perfect. I'm very happy with that. Let that dry. Close up the Agrax Earthshade, and then I'm going to be quite lazy here. What I'm going to do is take the lid off of this wash, dip my straight in, and go for the sheep. I'm going to do a wash all over of the grey, light grey from Vallejo. Be very careful. And when that's done, I'm going to do a white dry brush, and then I'll be happy with the sheep as well. That's a very quick process. There we are, that's done. And now a little bit of the off-white onto this bit of tissue paper that you see just at the edge. Just a bit, there you are. And I'm going to get my brush. I really should wait for that to dry. I'm going to wait for that to dry, and then I'll come back and do that dry brush. That should now be dry enough. So I'm going to go in with my brush, and I'm going to get that to be dry brush, proper dry brush. So traditionally, make sure you do it so that almost nothing's coming off. There we are. And then we'll go in on the sheep, and we'll do a nice dry brush to bring it back out the highlights and raise it back up to be a little bit whiter where we want it to be. So I'm happy with the face actually being a bit darker, but I do want to bring the rest of it up. And there we are. So that is something that I'm pretty happy with. What I'm now going to do is take all these things over, which I'm ready to put onto the diorama, and don't forget that does include Rosie and Sam and their daughter, and I'm going to stick it on the diorama. What an exciting moment. So let's get ourselves over there and get that done. While my mother's visiting, I'm going to try and be sociable a bit and not lock myself away in room 13 so much, and so I've put the table in the lounge where we're going to sit in the evenings, and I'll be doing some miniature painting. The plan is to spend most of this time miniature painting and not doing so much terrain, because, well, I've missed doing the miniatures. But what I'm doing right now is painting the letters inside the plaque for the Hobbit Hole. And to do this, I'm using these things that are called watercolour pens, which I'd never heard of, but Angela has suggested I make use of, and they're working quite well. I've just managed to get through the first half of the plaque, giving them a go, and what I thought I'd do is bring you all in here and point the camera down, and you can see how that works. So they've got a reservoir at the end, and they have a brush tip, very similar to any normal paintbrush, but it means that you can keep your paint very wet if that's what you wish. Now, I don't actually want to use them in that way. I'm just using them because they're quite fine tipped, and they're being making it relatively easy for me to get into the edges of each of these letters that have been scribed out. So yeah, I'll point the camera down and put some music on, and you can watch me do this. And the battery is running out, but I'm sure that you've had enough watching me, 8 minutes or so of clip. So yeah, I'm going to carry this on with this, finish this off, and I will show you what it looks like when it is done. And so we come to it, what I suppose is almost the final dressing, and I feel a little bit emotional, which I suppose is also understandable, because this has been a very awesome build for me to do from beginning to end, and particularly for the reason, or maybe specifically for the reason, that I am sat here on the eve of Rosie's first birthday, and I'm about to glue Rosie onto the Hobbit Hole that I made for her first birthday. So hey, I also have a goat, a sheep, 4 rabbits, and some more pots, and some more plant pots. What I've realised, and this is going to miss because I'm an idiot and I completely forgot, so I'm not going to get time now, is I forgot to paint up the plant pots that came with Rosie, and so I'm going to leave space for them to go on, at least on that table. So I might try and get them painted tonight. They are primed. I just need to actually paint them up. So maybe I will be able to. We'll see. I'm gonna go ahead now though and start sticking these final items down. So we have a goat, and said goat is going to go here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is very simply, I have some PVA on my little dinner plate. I'm going to get a sufficient amount of PVA. And I'm going to set said goat down, and hopefully it'll dry there nicely. Now we have the sheep. Here we are, and if you can see, that now has actually got black legs and a little bit of black on its ears, or dark grey. The reason for that, you probably couldn't see it anyway, you'll see on the pictures, is Angela said sheep have black legs, so I did some black legs. And little sheepy fella is going to go here and stand looking through the fence. So same old way, bit of PVA, put him down. Now we come to the rabbits. And the idea here, I suppose I really shouldn't film this, because the idea here is that Rosie should be looking for these and trying to find them as a bit of fun in a few years, when it's the sort of thing that she might be into. But hey, maybe she'll never watch this film, or maybe she will and then she'll forget. So I'm actually going to hide one back here, which is on its way over to the vegetable patch, obviously not where you want to have a rabbit. And I'm going to tuck one on the top, at least one on the top, and he's going to be kind of up here, using the tweezers, but I actually need to press in a bit more. Might need a bit more glue than that. There we are. There's that little fella up there. And then I'm going to put one down here on the front, which is going to be nice and easy to see. I won't bother with the tweezers. He's going to be kind of sat in there near the flowers. And then we've got the last brown one. And where are we going to put the last brown one? I should really have taken, asked questions and got some of you to suggest positioning for these, shouldn't I? That would have been quite good fun. A little bit of audience participation. But hey, he's going to go in this garden here. He's going to tuck in there, just the other side of the fence. Ooh, he's going to fall over. I've tried to cut the pudding bases off as best as I could, but I've not done a very good job, which is probably why that's not working. So what I'll do is I'll take my little bradawl, which is rapidly becoming my wonder tool of the year, and I'll make a little bit of a dent where I wanted to sit. Bit of PVA, and then the notch that's in the bottom still from the pudding base will sit into that dent. There we are, that's much better. Cool. So we've done the animals. We have a sheep, a goat, and 4 rabbits. Brilliant. Oh, this is so cool. Sorry, I'm getting emotional here. So now we're going to look at these little last few plants, though I might leave them off until I've painted these and see how that goes. So let's get on to the main event. We have Sam. Sam is going to be running along here. So what I've done is I've left some of the pudding base on, or some of the slaughter base in this case actually, so that I could actually sit him into the road and have him be solid. So he will fit in there. Needs to be a bit deeper so he fits a bit better. There we are. And then his back leg is there. Scientifically done. I probably should measure and do all sorts of stuff, but I think it'll be fine. Right, so let's just make sure. Right, bit deeper. I can always drop some more of the sand around if I need to, but that is very nearly good enough. A little bit wider. I could always cut that down a bit more actually. There we are. That is going to be fine. So Sam is zooming along towards his family, and who can blame him? What a wonderful family he has. As we all know, Sam was the true hero of Lord of the Rings. Never mind that. Melt, Frodo, Sam and only Sam. And what we're going to have is we're going to have little, what's her face? I learned her name, didn't I? And I've forgotten it again because I'm rubbish at names. She's going to be standing there. And then little Rosie is going to be standing in the doorway with a little hand kind of resting on her. So I've done the same thing with this one, because this one also had a metal slaughter base. So we'll dig a hole out there. Yeah. Make sure that fits. A little bit more. Tell you what, these bradawls are good. There we are. And then Rosie was down next to her. Like so. Let's zoom that in so you can see a little easier. Let's lift that a bit. There we are. There we are, Sam coming into his family. So what we'll do is I'll get the PVA again. Now unfortunately Rosie's model comes from Forge Weld, and therefore was Forge Weld resin, and therefore is designed to come off the sprue very easily. So I haven't got anything which is actually going to be pinning her to the base. So if she comes off, I might have to pin her. But for now, that is perfect. I mean, look at that. There they are. There's little Rosie and the daughter. And up the road, there's Sam. That's so cool. I'm so happy. Okay, I am going to try and get some of these painted, and I'm going to leave these to dry because the next processes I need to do is varnishing the outside and varnishing the name badge. So I might do the name now, might varnish the name now actually. You don't need to see that, I've just got some clear lac to put on it, clear lacquer. Yeah, and then I will put some colours on these plants and you'll be able to see what that looks like. So yeah, populated. So what we have now is I'm going to paint these little things. I've got some pumpkins, some mushrooms and those little flowers that I just mentioned. So I've gathered together a gaggle of paints over here, which I'm going to make use of. The German orange is for the pumpkins. I hope that's going to be correct. The cork brown is for the mushrooms, and then for the flowers I've got this array of colours, so Amarillo Luna, moon yellow, blue violet, flat red and Andrea blue, and then a couple of different greens, uniform green and lime green. So I'm going to put some music on while I'm doing this and speed the video up. I'm going to actually be watching a YouTube video, and yeah, you can watch while I do this, and I hope that this is successful. now that they're painted up, I'm going to stick them in. And I'm going to make use of the super glue gel because that's going to be a slightly easier way to stick them down. And what I'm going to do is I'm first of all doing the mushrooms, which are a little bit fiddly. So I'm actually going to grab my, which I should have had on hand, shouldn't I? Up there, everything is nicely within reach of my hobby bench. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick these in, kind of in and around the garden. So I'm going to put one in here, or maybe even two in there. And then I'm going to put, because they're going to obviously be part of a feeding frenzy for the hobbits. So they do need to be reachable. There's one. Let's put a big one under there. So let's do that. This super glue gel is really annoying. It keeps coming, as they say. It doesn't stop. So you squeeze a little bit out, look down, and then all of a sudden you've got super glue everywhere. So there we are, a couple of nice mushrooms in there. That looks well, doesn't it? They're nice. Maybe I can fit another one in at the back, one of these small ones. I might need to get off my backside to situate this. But super glue gel is a great thing. It makes it a lot easier to glue things like this down because it has a little bit of structure to itself. Right. Come in from that side and go in underneath there. There we are. Some nice mushrooms for Sam to cook. Couple more maybe. I'm going to come back to them. I have a few more, as you can see. So now we have these beautifully painted little pots. So I'm going to cut a couple of these off and stick them carefully on to the potting table. So I'll do that with PVA. There we are, there's one. I'm going to stick the ball on actually. That's what she's been working on while she's waiting for her Sam to turn up, to come home. I'm going to put one on the floor and then I'm going to fill the rest of that table up with other items. So we'll have one down here, there, and then I have these tiny little ones that are in the packet. So these do need the tweezers, maybe a little bit more delicate than I was then. There we are. They can get dropped in the PVA. And can go about there. And then we'll do one of the red ones. And then I think we're done for flowers. So, I don't want that one to pop out. I want that one. I don't want that one. I want that one. Classic comedy. So there we are. Click that back together to keep them safe. I'm sure I'll have use for them some other time. And we'll drop this back into the PVA and stick it on. Yeah. So let me just turn that a bit so you can see that a little better. That table is now looking rather lovely, I think you'll have to agree. And what we now have are the pumpkins. So again, let me move the camera a little bit. It's going to come down a bit to this front corner. And what I am considering doing is, I don't know if you can see here, I have a little bit of kind of stuff. And I was thinking of having them going, so our neighbours, when they're growing pumpkins, they have them all hanging all over the edge of their fence, and I was thinking of doing something like that. So what I'm going to do now is cut these pumpkins off of their sprue and then start to situate them. That's a lot of pumpkins, that might even be too many. So what I was thinking of doing was having a pumpkin stuck on there and then having this kind of coming up to it. Now this might be a bit too much for me to do at this stage, and I may want to consider leaving this for a bit and coming back to it. So what I might do for now is pile a couple of pumpkins up by the door, which is the other thing I was going to do, just because they'll have been picked. So I'm going to do that now. Put a few pumpkins, maybe put some around here as if they've been harvested. So I'll just get some PVA, just drop them in place. There we are, so we've got a nice little pile of pumpkins there. I'll zoom in so you can see a bit better. That's really nice decoration. So I'm going to leave my idea with the vines for now, just because this is going to be done by tomorrow, which it is done, basically. I have one more thing of flowers to put on, one more of these little things. You couldn't see that at all, that was terrible. One more of these little things, which I need to decide where that's going to go, and I obviously haven't yet done the sunflowers. Just too panicky. But apart from that, that's done. And I can always come back and add little bits and pieces, like a gate and a gate and a gate, which I just haven't got to. But we're really getting somewhere now. So, yeah, very pleased. Very pleased indeed. Yeah, that's actually going to go on the neighbours. Just pop that down on the neighbours. I'm actually going to use super glue gel to put that in place, because I think that will hold it a bit easier, a little bit better. Bit of super glue gel, stick it down next to their door, and we're done. So the rest of it I'll tidy away so that I don't lose anything, and then when that's all dried in a few minutes, I'm going to have to do the varnishing, but I won't do that on camera, and then I will show it all off to you when it is completely finished and the sign is stuck on. I'm so stoked. And now, on Rosie's birthday no less, I come to the final section. I'm about to stick on the plaque on the front of the display board. So I'm going to point the camera down now and get the PVA glue out and stick that in place, and then this build is done. So here we are, the board is on its side, on its back, and I have measured out exactly halfway. You can see a little knock here. So what I'm going to do is get some PVA and PVA the two sections, then spread that PVA so it's a thin, smooth along the back. Then the first one can be very carefully put on, and then smooth. I might put a bit more PVA on that actually, it's been a little bit too frugal there. Stick that on in place, and then this wouldn't be a beard clipper build without a whole load of clamps, so I'm going to clamp it in place very carefully. And there we have it. I'll let that to dry, and then it's done. Oh yes. Oh yes. I've just had a lot of fun putting the next 6 sunflowers together. If you want to see more about that, you'll need to watch the video I released on Thursday this week, which is about photo etch. These are photo etch sunflowers, and they are being put together for Rosie's Hobbit Hole, which is very close to being put on the wall. The next thing I'm going to be doing for this is I have some resin flower pots. So I'm going to clean a few of them up. I'm not going to just do one, so I'm just going to clean them up using a sharp knife to take the flashing off and the any mould lines that I can find. These, I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head to say it now, but I will later and I'll tell you. It's a good company, I'd recommend them highly. They were going through some issues when I ordered, and while it was a little bit delayed and didn't come very quickly, their communication was completely top notch. And at the end of the day, life happens, and it's how you cope with problems that matters, not the fact that problems occur. So I was quite impressed. So I'm going to tidy some of these up, and then I will bring you back when I start to paint them. I've cleaned up, washed and spray primed with car primer just these little plant pots, which I'm going to paint now, and then one of them I'll pick, well, I'm not sure which one I'll pick at the moment, but I'll pick one of them to plant all of these sunflowers in. So I'm going to do 2 colours on the first one, which I'm going to paint for you to watch, and then I will probably do the rest off camera. So give it a shake. The first colour I'm going to use is Cavalry Brown, which is from Vallejo and Model Colour. It is 70982, and of course that will appear on the screen, as is my wont for these sections. So we'll get some of that and we'll pop it on my wet palette, which I need a fresh one very soon. And this is going to be taking the place of terracotta. I've actually just this second ordered some terracotta because I don't have any, but this is going to have to do. So it's a nice rich red, as you can see. It's a very reddy brown, and I think it will work quite nicely for a traditional pot colour. So let's get that all painted up. Okay, so that's coloured, and what we're now going to do is we're going to do the earth, and we're going to do the earth, tan earth. Funny that, isn't it? So tan earth is also from Model Colour and is 70874. So we'll just get a little bit of that after a good shake, and we will drop that in where the earth is. There we are. One plant pot painted. So I'll let that dry, and I'll pick some other colours for the others, and I'll tell you what I've painted them. I'll turn the camera off now, for now, just because, yeah, it's going to be the same thing, just different colours. But I'll show you what I've done when it's finished. I got a little carried away and I finished it, forgot to come back and record. So anyway, here we are. The plant pots and the sunflowers are on Rosie's Hobbit Hole. And they're looking very good. They're drying now. I've used PVA to glue them down. It was a bit of a faff, wasn't the easiest thing to stick them in there, but now they're in, I'm just so pleased. They're wonderful. I've actually got one more sunflower left over, which I'm going to put somewhere, I'm not sure where, but for now that's it. I'm going to leave that tonight, let that dry and come back to it tomorrow. And then the only other thing to do will be to stick gaffer on, which I will do tomorrow as well. I'm not going to fiddle with this now, it's been too awkward and there was a bit of swearing. So yeah, there we are. And the colours I went for, the one on the left is bright yellow with a green, and then the one on the right is the one with that you saw me paint. And I did another, the larger one with the same colour, and then another one which was shiny black, which will probably go on somewhere else on this diorama as well. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow once those 2 beautiful sunflower plants have dried completely, and then we will finish this off and get it on the wall. Having finished this off finally a couple of times, we actually are finally getting to the final bit of finally doing it. Finally, this is Gaffer. This is Sam's dad. And in this little home, this little hobbit hole, he lives next door. I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but whatever. And so what I'm going to do, he's not glued in yet, but he's going to stand just here, leaning on the fence, digging with his shovel and shouting at his son as his son runs past to his family, which if we zoom out, are just up there, just on the edge of the shot. So I'm going to get that glued in and leave that to dry, and then the next process will be working out how to actually mount this on the wall. So there you are, what an epic video and what an epic build. And I thought I would wrap this video up down here in Rosie's playroom, stood next to the Hobbit Hole on the wall where it's mounted, and it's just lovely. You'll have seen some pictures, or you will do after this, depending on which order I edit them in, I'm not sure yet, of Rosie looking at the Hobbit Hole, and she just loves it. She shouts at it, she wants to see it all the time, and that is just makes me feel like the most amazing thing in the world. It is brilliant, and this is what hobbying is about. This is what my hobbying is about, is creating stuff like this. Obviously I do stuff for the wargaming table, but this is the pinnacle. This is right up there. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. It has been very long, it did take a while, and this last video in particular has been quite a long one, I believe, so hopefully that's not been too much. But yeah, it's shown you all the builds. There's been nothing hidden, all the mistakes, all the confusions and all the learning that I've done. You've been able to learn along with me. I'll stop rambling. I will thank you for watching. If you've got this far and if you've watched every minute, please let me know in the comments if that is you and if you've managed to enjoy this all the way through. And just drop a comment on if there's anything else that you want to say as well. I always love to hear from you, and I do reply to everything that I receive. So thank you very much for watching, and please do stay safe, stay well and stay healthy.